Alrighty, welcome to my business presentation for an innovative business proposal titled A Book and Breakfast by me, yours truly, Ariana Rogers. So starting off, we have the business, A Book and Breakfast. A good book is only a page away. Find your next book while enjoying breakfast in our locally curated garden located in Hope Mills, North Carolina. Who are we? We're your favorite place to visit. Buy and sell used books, enjoy coffee, tea, breakfast, or lunch items, enjoy our scenic gardens, contribute to your community, and come and get your hands dirty with our complimentary gardening classes. Starting off, we have proposed business and its environments. We'll go over overview of proposed business venture, external environment of the organization, ethical and social environment, internal environment of the organization, industry background and choice, sources of management advice, and growth potential. Starting off with the overview, a functional used bookstore with a dine-in experience, a garden with scenic smells and views near the park and lake, contributing to those views, attractive to both locals and the occasional tourist. Next, we have the external environment, which goes over mostly in the paper. And then we have ethical and social environment. Similarly, we provide back to the community. Jobs and volunteer opportunities are available. We buy back used books, providing used books for younger readers, including children, and college textbooks for students. We have healthy food options and classes for gardening. Next up, we have the internal environment of the organization. We go more into depth in this in the paper. Stepping on over to industry standard and choice. Personally, I'm a used book lover as a full-time college student. Sometimes money gets a little tight, and used books are usually the way to go. It's also saving the planet and saving some trees. I do also have an interest in flowers. I plant dahlias every year as well as some other plants, but I don't have the greenest of all thumbs. And I've also noticed we have a lack of unique stores locally, so I feel like this would truly benefit our environment with a niche store. We have sources of management advice. For this, we would have direct reports, performance reviews, customer reviews, and initially starting out, because we would not have some of these things, we would have professional consultants with their opinions on our business plan. Next, we have the growth potential. Unfortunately, there's not a big growth potential, just purely for the fact that this is more of a charity-based organization and wanting to give back to the community. I would personally be sacrificing my paycheck to make the same wages as my managers, living comfortably but not luxuriously, so I could give back any exceed to the community. Obviously, ensuring that the store is the #1 priority to ensure we're still making good income, but then any excesses would be going back to employees and back to the community, back to charity, and back to other events we can do to benefit the community. Let's go ahead and move on to planning and decision making. In this topic, we'll discuss my mission statement, code of ethics, SWOT analysis, strategic goals and plans, and tactical goals and plans. Starting off with the mission statement, my organization's mission statement is for the community, by the community, serving Hope Mills youth, veterans, families, elderly, and lovers of books, coffees, and flowers. I specify veterans and families, especially with the addition of elderly, because we do have a lot of Vietnam War vets in this area, as well as veterans, because we're about 30 minutes from the military base, and we do have a lot of young families that are looking for some fun things to do, as well as just in general, younger people, college students. Let's step on over to our code of ethics. A book and breakfast promises to better the community of Hope Mills, improving employment, wellness, and environmental awareness. We devote ourselves to respecting all people in all walks of life and remaining honest when purchasing and selling literary works. We push to promote ethical and renewable business practices that not only make people stronger, but also healthier and happier. So for the SWOT analysis, I go more into depth with this in my written business proposal, but we have our opportunities, threats, strengths, weaknesses, opportunity strengths, opportunity weaknesses, threat strengths, and threat weaknesses. But let's go ahead and step over to strategic goals and plans with measurable goals. More financial goals are written into this bigger plan with a split between the cafe and bookstore for total. No contribution from the garden section, as this is more of our giving back to the community initially straight out of the bat. Let's go ahead and step over to tactical goals and plans. Stock on books is going to be our biggest thing. Determining cafe supply is going to be another thing that's just going to be initially straight off the bat a little bit difficult. We do have promotions, things like book sales or promoting, giving gift vouchers to the cafe for people who donate books, initially starting off the bat for the first 1 to 3 months of opening our store. As well, we will be going to thrift stores to make sure we have a decent stock. This will also help give back to our community. Let's step on over to our next goal, which is organizational structure and design, where we will discuss form of ownership, strategic managers, organizational design, management style, and organizational culture. Starting off with form of ownership, we have sole proprietorship. That would be where I am the only owner. However, like I said previously, sacrificing salary and life of luxury, giving back to the community solely. Next, we have strategic managers, which is our main managers, product managers. Low cost strategy would be our goal because there's not real high need for innovation in this industry, and high communication is going to be valuable. Stepping over to organizational design, we have product structure and separation of divisions. This goes more into depth in my innovative business proposal. Next, we have management styles, where we aim for an affiliative mindset to aid employees, tight-knit bond between managers and employees. Managers should be able to effectively work in their work environment that they manage, rather than sitting in their office and not being hands-on. We want them to be hands-on and be with their employees so their employees feel safe and comfortable talking to them. Next, we have organizational culture, where individuals are driven by purpose. That is our big goal, to better the community and take a step towards saving the planet. We also aim for the acceptance of all peoples in all walks of life and value in yourself as not only an employee, but a person who is aiming to do better for the community. Let's move over to our next point. Organizational change and innovation, where we will discuss forces of change, managing change, organizational innovation, emphasizing distinctive competencies. Let's start off with forces for change. Changes in book preferences are something to consider, as well as seasonal changes. Changes in food and beverage wants coming with seasonal changes. So, for instance, cold beverages in the summer, hot beverages in the winter, things like that to take into consideration. Then we have competitor actions, so places like Walmart, which would be close to our store location hypothetically, possibly lowering their new book prices, realizing that they now have competition with a used book vendor. And then we also have changes in used book availability, which becomes a little bit difficult with the fact that, some genres can be harder to obtain by used means. Next, we have managing change, where we would be monitoring book sales, seasonal gardening classes, seasonal menu items, offering new programs to combat these changes. These are all options for us. We have organizational innovation, things like hosting 5Ks for charity events, incorporating employees with incentives for hiking, allowing team building time on Wednesdays, every other Wednesday from 12 to 2 p.m., where we would shut the store so we could go ahead and do something as a team, discuss things we need to work on, but also allow time for employees to decompress while having a paid lunch. And this would improve work morale overall. Let's move on to emphasizing distinctive competencies, where we are bettering the community, offering unique options of buying and selling used books, functional cafe offering breakfast and lunch items, location near the park and lake in Hope Mills, North Carolina, attracting locals and tourists, appeal to all ages and groups of people, Gardening classes and volunteering options offer something peaceful for people of all ages, but attracts elderly clients who enjoy peaceful gardening and want something to do with their community again. Strong sense of purpose in employees provide customers with helpful aid when necessary. When employees feel validated and happy with their job and have a purpose in life, they're more likely to be happy, healthy, and help others. Let's move on to our next point, where we're going to the human resource strategy, where we will discuss job analysis and human resource planning, recruiting and selection of employees, training and development, compensation and benefits, and finally, performance appraisal and benefits. Starting with job analysis, we have our different position, which would be a main or general manager who would manage everything, including being the manager of the managers, a cafe manager who would manage the cafe, a bookstore manager who would manage the bookstore, gardening educator who would manage the education of the garden center, baristas making the beverages in the cafe, chefs making the food in the cafe, book purchasers, and book sales. These are two separate units. That way we can keep things clear and concise and moving efficiently and effectively. Finally, we have book assistance and recovery. This is more of a part-time, temporary role with someone that could be even a student working on the floor to assist in recovering the books, making sure that they're orderly and managed, and helping customers where they need it. Let's move on to recruiting and selection, where we would initially have to start with external recruitment, of course, being a new business, but we would aim to internally recruit as time goes on. Just because I find personally, from my experience working in the big bad world, that when you internally recruit, there is more knowledge in the field and there's a want to make the community better because this person has stayed with us for so long that they deserve this next step up in responsibility. Let's move on to training and development, which would be a hands-on instruction where they would follow a manager while they receive formal training initially and then shadowing an employee as time goes on. Let's move on to compensation and benefits, starting with legal compensation and benefits, Social Security, workers' comp, employee assistance, unemployment insurance, and then starting off with some of the not legal, but just more kind things for employees and employee incentives and compensation, which would be 1.25 days of PTO per month, health insurance including dental and vision, one free book per month per full-time employee, one free meal and beverage per week per full-time employee, tuition reimbursement for long-term employees, which would include full-time employees who have been working for over 12 months. Moving on to performance appraisal, we have trait and behavioral initially conducted every 6 months with main manager, product manager, and the employee. This would start off with positive reinforcement, including client complaints or compliments. Praise always comes first, however, with confidence to do better finally at the end. Perfection should be rewarded highly because occasionally you do have a really solid, almost perfect employee with little room for improvement other than to keep doing what they're doing. Let's go ahead and move on to our next point. Managing individual behavior, motivation, and performance, where we will discuss perspectives on motivation, motivational strategies, reward systems to motivate performance. Starting off with perspectives on motivation. We have OCT, reward high performance, and punishment for poor performance, encouraging productivity, among other things. Motivational strategies would be things like Employee of the Month with incentive gift cards combined, paid dinners for the whole team if the whole team is doing really great. And then finally, as punishment, we have a 3 strikes and you're out. You'll get 2 verbal warnings and then 3 written warnings and then you're out for any poor behavior. Next, we have reward strategies, raises, bonuses, additional PTO, team dinners for well done team. Develop a strong sense of community. Next, we have leadership and management, where we will discuss the approach to leadership, effective communication, and managing work groups. Starting off with approach to leadership, we have participation with employees, charismatic leaders, a safe space always, and relationship-oriented, caring, communicative employees and managers. Next, we have effective communication. All staff are held to the same standard. Managers and employees should be able to communicate effectively, and there should be no fear in the hierarchy. A safe space for all. Finally, we have managing work groups. So all staff initially starting off should cross-train so that there is a respect, almost a walk a mile in someone else's shoes, even though you won't be expected as an employee. If you're hired to be a cashier for the sale of books, you won't be expected to ever have to work in the cafe. You should be expected to have some training in the cafe to understand that no one is working harder or better than someone else. No one should feel left out. This also includes team building exercises and will reflect performance. Let's move on to our next topic, control techniques and methods, where we will discuss strategic controls, operations controls, financial controls, and human resource controls. This part's going to be pretty brief, but we're going to start off with strategic controls, where we'll have book promotions and gardening classes that will shift. Operations controls, which will have incentives for good behaviors and team building exercises as previously stated. Next, we have financial controls, which include budgeting, promotions, advertisements, and meeting a quota. Finally, we have HR controls, which is open-mindedness, impromptu visits, running ethically and safely at all times. Again, no one should feel left out. Everyone is an equal. Next, we have managing operations, quality, and productivity, where we will discuss a grand total of 2 things, total quality management and productivity. So TQM, for short, managers and employees have the same expectations for quality and productivity. Everyone will review inventory. Managers, however, will be the sole ones to speak with suppliers, develop advertising campaigns, charity events, seasonal promotions, goals and incentives for employees, and find room for improvement. Well, this will be solely up to the management. Employees are encouraged to do things like help with advertising campaigns and ideas for charity events and seasonal promotions, as well as think of rewards together combined for what they do if they do meet their quotas. Let's move on to productivity, though. We're reviewing and changing outlay as necessary, product layout stations, and efficient checkout. So we'll have different stations for everything. So like I said previously, book sales, book purchases, we'll have the cafe with a cashier, barista, and chef. Everyone will have their own separate stations. Things like the bookshelves will be moved around from time to time just to see what works best for sales and promotions. Finally, we have the critical risks, where we will discuss potential problems, obstacles, and risks, alternative courses of actions. Starting off with potential problems, we have competition, seasonal changes, book sales dropping, cafe sales dropping, employment retention sinking. Moving on to the obstacles and risks, we have location, awareness for the community, finances, and considering an off-season. Let's talk about the alternatives, though. So location. Location could be moved. We could discard the idea of the garden, and we could move this to somewhere like a strip mall, where the space and permits are already accessible and easy to make, where we wouldn't have to build anything new or take resources from the community to place something down. So for this, scrapping the garden idea really wouldn't be amazing, but it would provide us with more ease, essentially, as far as an alternative course of action, depending on the difficulty of this business proposition. We could also consider something like an off-season if we were to do the garden. Many of the local businesses by the park and lake close down during the winter entirely. This would promote some employee retention just simply for the fact that they would have the winter off with their family. While that would be unpaid, sometimes some employees enjoy that. As well, it could bring in some new faces. We could also change the idea of the garden to a community garden instead, where we eliminate entirely the role of a garden educator and just have an open plot of land for the community to come and plant whatever they want. Finally, we have promotions, which I've talked about multiple times, where we offer if we are low on a certain genre of book, we buy back these books at a higher rate, or we offer cafe gift cards, or special garden classes, etc. So these would be my plans for my business, and I hope you did enjoy my business proposition for a book and breakfast for my business final presentation. I'm sorry it went way over the expected time, but I had a lot to talk about, and I hope you will enjoy my enthusiasm rather than discounting it. Thank you very much.